Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Boy, I got to tell you, the riots are expanding, just like we've been predicting all week. It's not going well, and it's going to get worse. And they're gonna hit real hard this weekend. We know, no kings. We've been talking about that since Monday. We broke it. We shared it with everybody. We told everybody they need to talk about it. This is a really dangerous situation in America. We have outright civil unrest and violence being promoted, being planned, being funded by leftist groups across the board. Our DOJ will not do anything about it. For some reason, none of the people in charge are being prosecuted. Everybody can see who's doing this. Everybody can see where it's coming from, but we have yet to see anybody brought in for criminal investigations, criminal charges, criminal this, criminal that, and it's scary. It's terrifying. There are things that could be done to disrupt what's going on, but no one's doing it. No one. No one has the political courage to go after the billionaires involved. No one has the political courage to go after even the mid-level leaders. This is being funded by and through different Democrat operations, Democrat groups that are tied to the globalist groups, and even some probably Rhino groups. I'm sure we can find some Rhino ties. But this is not dissimilar to what's happened globally with these immigration riots. We see it in Europe. We see it, all over Europe, but all over the world. You've got this mass migration thing and then civil unrest on a massive scale. This is a tried and true methodology that we don't really need to guess about. It's manifestly obvious. So we've got a lot to talk about on that. The data continues to roll in. The information continues to roll in. The only thing that's not changing is the lack of response from our federal government beyond Donald Trump, who's doing everything he can. Tom Homan, Donald Trump, we've got certain elements of our federal government that are doing great. They're really moving on these things. They're making a lot of difference. They're having an impact. There are groups that are doing a great job on this. But understand, I believe we're in a situation, much like we were with Bill Barr, where the DOJ is just objectively undermining, if maybe even undermining intentionally, Trump's goals here. They could be doing things. We have no Epstein arrests. We have no arrests on the people behind these horrific, violent riots. We have no arrests. J6, nothing on the COVID stuff, no arrests of anyone substantive in 6 months. No one. There is no accountability. And because there's no accountability, these people behind this stuff are acting with impunity. And we're either going to speak up and do something about this, or our country's going to continue to suffer, folks. And it is. It's suffering in a massive way. So we're going to get into all that. We're going to really hit that in the second half of the show. So make sure you're staying with us for that. In the first half of the show, though, I want to get into our food supply. Our food supply is disastrous. I mean, we've talked extensively about the mRNA and the food supply, the fact that they're putting these DNA-based vaccines, all of these horrible, horrible things they're putting in the food supply. You've got to understand that big food, big ag, and big pharma are one and the same. Your local ranchers are heroes. We love those guys. We got my buddy Cowboy out in Nevada. We got all sorts of good people around the country that we know and we talk about that are great ranchers doing great things. We love them. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about the big commercial industrial food complex that is absolutely controlled. I mean, listen, just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen how many times we've got Chinese people trying to bring in toxins and things for the food supply. I mean, it's terrifying. Our food supply is dangerous as can be. It's an absolute disaster. And we need to talk about the ethics of the big ag industry. They don't have any. At least I would argue. But when we get to big food, big ag, the ethics are based on profit, and that's the exclusive thing. And to the extent that it's kind of horrific, we've got an expert here, Gail Eisnitz, that's done a wonderful book on talking about some of this. We're going to talk with her about some of the horrors we see in big food and big ag, and why it's so important to support your local farmers, your local ranchers, and the good people that are actually producing food and supplies for us because they're good people. So anyways, lots to talk about there. Before we do, of course, please help us, please support us. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Please become a monthly supporter. Give us what you can. $20 a month is great. If you don't have it, give what you can. One-time donation, reoccurring donations, whatever you can do. But we need your help. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. And today I want to remind you about my partners. Go to TomRens.com. You have to type TomRens.com. You can't search Tom Rens or you just get hit pieces. But go to TomRens.com. Click shop. Go to our shop affiliates and partners. Scroll down. Don't forget Block Trust IRA. But go to Dulsa Natural Sweetener. Dulsa is a natural replacement for your sweeteners. You don't need sugar. You don't need cancer-causing aspartame. You don't need any of that. Get Dulsa. One of my favorite sponsors. Love these guys. I use it in my house. It tastes great. It's great in your coffee, great in whatever you need sugar for. Just you don't need the sugar. No need for processed sugars anymore. We've got a low-calorie, monk fruit based sweetener. Tastes delicious without all the things that come from these poisonous processed sugars and sugar additives. So make sure you're checking that out at TomRens.com. Dulsa Sweetener. All right, let's get to food supply. We're going to start out with food supply, then we're going to get to riots and the chaos around the country, around the world, supported by USAID and funded with your tax money as usual, because Soros is a smart enough guy to know that he'll pay for the startup, but once it gets paid for, he wants us to pay for it out of the tax dollars. So, but let's talk about big food and big ag and some of the horrific practices that we see there. Gail, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining us. I could see when I was looking at your work how passionate you are about what's going on in this industry, and to me I like talking to people who believe in what they're doing, and it's quite clear that you do. So you've got a book out, and if producer Andrew can pop that one up, out of sight. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it in a bunch of different places. But you're talking about what's going on with animals, particularly on the food process, the animal processing side of the big egg nightmare. And this is something you're really big on. And for me and for our audience, I really want to stress ethics are everything in life. When you have a company that's so unethical that it will, put mRNA, put these different things, how it treats animals, how it treats things, how it does, it's all part of this kind of big picture of what kind of ethics you're dealing with. Tell us a little bit about your work and what you found and, what you're seeing.
Well, yeah, there are no ethics in big ag. I can say that without any question. We've seen a dramatic consolidation in the meat industry in the last few decades, and
Yep.
Thousands of small to mid-size slaughterhouses have been forced out of business by these huge mega slaughterhouses that kill 1 million or more animals a year. Some kill. One slaughterhouse I visited killed 144,000 pigs a week, and that was years ago. They've increased since then to 35,000 pigs a day.
How can you even do that?
Yeah.
How do you even, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of from a capacity standpoint, even. That's a massive amount of animals in one facility. That's
right. It's
crazy.
Virtually impossible to ensure that the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act is enforced properly, which is on the books to make sure that animals are rendered unconscious before they're bled and butchered.
Yeah.
And that they're handled humanely.
Yeah.
So it's virtually impossible to ensure that it's being complied with. But in the last few weeks, we've seen some changes where line speeds, which for pigs are generally about 1,106 pigs per line per hour, that's 3 pigs a minute, have been lifted. The big meat and big ag has convinced the administration to lift line speeds. There's no cap on them now. You can slaughter pigs as fast as you want now. You can slaughter pigs so outrageously fast. And for poultry, the evisceration line speed used to be 144 chickens per minute.
Wow.
Now it's 175 chickens per minute. So we're talking about, excuse me, production line speeds that are so fast, all sorts of terrible things happen in these plants.
Well, let's dig into this a little bit, right? So there's two aspects. There's of course the kind of, it's obviously you're not going to meet the precise standard of the law when you're just trying to go as fast as humanly possible. But there's also a really important aspect here that I don't want to overlook, and that's quality control. I mean, when you start talking about 175 dead animals a minute, I mean, tell us about. I mean, I know it's a horrible process, and I know that it's kind of brutal, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I just know that at those speeds, the line doesn't stop. Excuse me. The line doesn't stop for anything because a moment of downtime costs thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
So the line doesn't stop for injured workers. It doesn't stop for contaminated meat. And it certainly doesn't stop for slow or uncooperative or injured animals.
No. So you've got people, you've got animals, you've got everything at risk here, all for the sake of profit. And so, folks, I want to balance how we're talking about this, right? Because I want us to understand something. The people that run Big Egg, they don't care about, the animals. They don't care about the people. They don't care about anything but the profits. They look at this, for anybody that's in manufacturing, they look at this from a Six Sigma lean perspective. And what I mean by that is they run statistics and they set goals. And on those lines, you either meet those goals or you lose your job. And if the guy that's in charge of those lines, so the manager, has to make sure those lines are up. If someone gets hurt, if an animal gets hurt, if there's some horror that's going on, you find a way to keep it moving, because if your production drops, your job is gone. So when a local person, local person meaning to that line, a person working that line gets hurt or injured or whatever, they've got the boss, the manager overseeing that, just get out of the way so someone else can step in. And same for the animals. And I mean, understand that what Gail's talking about here, we're not talking about like, just a one-off. We're talking about animals that are really just being tortured to death in horrible ways. And it's awful. Now, I want to contrast this. Producer Andrea had a great point. She dropped a note to me. When we talk about hunters are getting, they've got all this sort of stuff about rules, how you can kill, where you can kill, those sorts of things, all sorts of things. But our industrial food segment, I mean, it's manifest to anybody who's seen this stuff, how awful it is. But we're relaxing rules further, which there's an argument on the productivity side to be made. But the problem is it's our food. So even if you don't care about the life of the animal and the torture of the animal, even if you don't care about the life or safety of the workers on the line, you ought to care about the food quality issues. One way or another, for whatever you care about, this is an issue you need to care about. And I'm going to keep drawing this back to the fact that if people are so unethical that they'll do this on a line, what do you think they're going to do when there's money to be made for vaccinating or poisoning or gene therapy, using gene therapies or genetically modifying these animals? There are no ethics. Gail, tell us more.
Well, during the course of my interviews for my first book, Slaughterhouse, I spoke with workers and meat inspectors who spent a combined total of 3 million hours on the kill floor. And without exception, they either engaged in or observed animals being strangled, beaten, boiled, skinned, or dismembered alive. Oh. Now, I can read you a litany of horrors. Things have changed slightly because my book generated a front page story in the Washington Post, which outraged Congress, and Congress decided to fund for the first time in 40 years the Humane Methods of Slaughter Act. It had been on the books for 40 years, but it had no money to enforce it. So things have changed slightly. Now, spot checks are required to make sure that animals aren't beaten in the heads with ineffective stunning equipment, repeatedly shocked with defective stunning equipment, gassed, screaming, convulsing. They're still doing that. Beating hogs with shackles and lead pipes, dragging disabled animals with meat hooks in their mouths and anuses or cables around their necks. Cattle often had their heads, bellies, sides, rumps skinned. They had their legs, ears, horns, and tails removed while they were still fully conscious. That's what I found.
Oh my God.
That kind of stuff is probably still going on to a certain degree, just not quite as bad as it was because the USDA meat inspectors conduct spot checks to make sure that animals are being properly stunned. But when inspectors come into the slaughter area, the workers know they're coming, and they use portable radios or whistles or code words to say, inspectors coming, slow line speed. So they're not getting a true picture of what's actually going on. So, and the bottom line is less than 3% of the meat inspection budget goes to Humane Methods of Slaughter Act enforcement. And that's outrageous, seeing as the animals are fueling the entire system. Less than 3% of their entire budget goes to their humane handling and stunning.
Wow. I mean, again, I want to tie this back because you got to understand. So, I mean, listen, I grew up and, hunting, that sort of thing is fine, right? And, but here's the deal. You eat what you kill, in my mind, and you never want to torture it. You want it to be as if you're going to kill something, it's got to be humane. Listen, death is always a thing, and it's never totally smooth, but you certainly don't want to injure or wound an animal. You want to make sure that if you don't know, to me, that was a big part of learning to hunt when I was a kid, knowing that you're going to make sure that you're not torturing the animal. Yeah. It's the reason where, when you do occasionally have a bad shot or something like that, you track it down and you put it out of its misery, because that's horrible. And with this, the fact that we would just sanction in a factory setting, that sort of behavior is awful. I mean, you got to wonder what it does to the psyche of the person who's working there. I mean, because I don't think it's human to just want to torture something to death. I think that if you have to do that for a living, if you're torturing animals to death, that's going to impact you as a human being. I can't imagine you come out of that unscathed. It's a little bit disturbing, more than a little bit disturbing to me. But again, I want to go back to this. So you've got factories that are knowingly torturing animals to death in this way. And I want to ask this question. How many of you guys watching think that factories that would do this, that would knowingly have their workers torturing an animal to death, that would skin an animal alive, cut off body parts alive and conscious, how many of you think that those same factories would have any issue with lying about the genetic modifications that they're doing, with lying about the poisons they're putting in their animals, about lying about the quality of the food? I mean, if they're slaughtering the animal and they see something that would indicate that there is a problem, that animal is, unsafe or whatever, I mean, do you really think that that someone who's that unethical is going to have some sort of an issue with overlooking it? I mean, we just producer Andrea just noted that she's got a report on them feeding pigs Skittles, which we've just heard about how unsafe Skittles are, to fatten them up. I mean, nothing we're doing is about the quality of the product. Nothing we're doing is even in the ballpark of ethical. What we have is the most unethical situation I can imagine, and apparently people are okay with it.
Yeah, people don't know. And I think it's just worth noting that 55 years ago, we slaughtered just over 10 billion farm animals in the world annually. And today we slaughter about 10 billion animals in the United States annually. So that's a shocking statistic, but it's where we're at.
Are you seeing with these factory farms and stuff? And I don't, I know your focus is on the slaughterhouse side, but I mean, from birth on, the treatment and I mean, you got to wonder how safe it is to eat an animal that's born in a cage, bred in a cage. I mean, the conditions they're kept in, these are serious issues that we got to talk about. I mean, yeah, when we talk about humane treatment of animals, remember, what do you think's healthier? A cow that lived on a ranch and grazed and did, what God intended? Or a pig that was kept in a tiny little cage living in its own feces eating Skittles?
I mean, that's really what my second book is about. Out of Sight is more about factory farms. My first book was focused on slaughterhouses. Okay. Factory farms, there are no ethics. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension how you can confine a mother pig that's pregnant in a cage, a mother pig weighing between 500 and 600 pounds in a cage that's less than 2 feet wide by 7 feet long, where she can never turn around, never take a step forward, never walk. And the result is that those mother pigs, they engage in stereotypic behavior, which means they go crazy. They chomp at the air, they head bob, they bite the bars, and they get sores all over their bodies, on their shoulders, on their backs and legs and hindquarters. There's sores from constant contact with the bars. They spend their entire lives in there. They get respiratory problems, arthritis, foot problems. They collapse in those cages and have to be dragged out by their snouts or their ears or their legs and put on piles of other dead and dying sows, and often are shot. Sometimes they're not. And sometimes they starve to death of dehydration because they can't even stand up in their crates to get to the water. The dead boxes at factory farms are always full of dead sows and dead piglets. One farm that I paid attention to several years ago had its dead box was overflowing to the point that the Environmental Protection Agency cited it, and they were forced to reveal the number of dead pigs they had per year at that particular corporation. And they had 420,000 dead pigs per that year that died on farm. That's 48 pigs dying every hour on farm because of the conditions. And just to give you a little background information, the piglets suffer tremendously, and those that are runts or don't grow fast enough, they're grabbed by their hind legs and they're whirled over the worker's shoulder and smashed headfirst to the concrete floor in a practice that's called thumping by the industry. Thumping is the standard term for it. And there's also
an industry standard.
I mean, that's an industry practice that's acceptable. And they have another
beating a pig's head to the floor until the pig's dead to get rid of it.
Yeah, they have another name for it. It's called packing, the industry acronym for pound against concrete. That's like standard. And unfortunately, that's approved by the corrupt American Veterinary Medical Association, which is...
Wait. The Veterinary Association is okay with beating an animal's head into the floor till it's dead?
Yeah, because the AVMA, the American Veterinary Medical Association, is in bed with these big factory farms. It's really, really sad.
Well, they're also in bed with Big Pharma, right? So, I mean, just so everybody's clear, these are the same people that are okay with them using experimental gene therapy drugs on these animals that you're going to then eat. So they're okay with feeding them Skittles and feeding them candy. And you get these crooked professors, just like in the pharmaceutical industry, who will say, no, it's okay. There's no evidence of an issue. Just like we just saw ASIP all get fired by Bobby Kennedy yesterday. Same sort of thing. So you've got these same guys that are completely owned by Big Ag, just like Big Pharma owns the FDA and the approval process. I want people to understand the parallel. This is really important. And again, do you trust the ethics of someone who will literally take a baby pig and beat its head on the floor until it's dead because it's not big enough?
And while you're speaking about feeding Skittles to pigs, it's worth mentioning that beef cattle are routinely fed on feedlots, are routinely fed meal from chicken feathers, poultry litter, that's the floor, the crap that comes off the floor in poultry houses, dead pigs, and fish. So just to give you an idea of what's going into them, that's going into us.
Compare that to what God would have us eat. I mean, the cows are supposed to run around in the grasslands eating grass and in the sunshine, drinking clean water, which is hard to find anymore. But think about the quality of the food we're eating, folks. This is the key here. There's no ethics. It translates. It translates across the board. When you see someone that's doing what they're doing in these factory farms to these animals, why would you think that they're going to be ethical about what they're putting in the animals or what's going to be in your food supply?
And it's also worth noting about chickens, since they're the bulk of animals that are slaughtered in the United States. They are raised in poultry houses that house 52,000 birds. They're genetically selected for massive appetites, so that by the time they're 6.5 pounds, which is the 7-week age that a broiler chicken is slaughtered, that's equivalent to a human baby gaining 600 pounds in 2 months. And the result of that is they have such massive breasts that they often can't stand. Their legs are splayed out under them. They're on their backs. They can't get to their feet. If you go into any poultry house, it's really sad because these birds are so unnaturally huge. Their breasts are so huge that they can't walk. They can't get to their food.
You're not eating real chicken. I mean, that's not real chicken. That's some Frankenstein creature that's been bred over the course of decades to be something that's really not natural. And this is one of the big issues. I cringe, and I have to do it because when you go to the grocery store, where are you going to get chicken, right? You go to the grocery store, you buy your Tyson chicken, your whatever chicken. I cringe because I know some of this stuff, and it makes me sick. But my options are limited now, luckily around here we do have some local farmers. But I mean, unless you've got local farmers, this is what you're feeding your kids, folks.
Right. And I mean, I can go on and on about the cruelties involved in every kind of production. Laying hens, I think that most people know that male chicks can't lay hens, and as a result are either ground up alive shortly after they hatch or put in plastic bags and smothered to death. But
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, that's standard practice for 300 million male chicks in the United States every year.
Why wouldn't they just let them grow and use them for food?
Oh, they're not the right body type. They wouldn't grow fast enough and produce enough meat. So they're different.
So we just waste. We instead of letting them grow, putting them outside, letting them grow a little bit, and then slaughtering them later, we just we just kill them immediately because it ups production value.
Right, exactly. And the hens themselves are 6 to 10 hens are crammed into a cage the size of a microwave. They have a maximum of 67 square inches per bird. That's less than a letter size sheet of paper. And they're so frustrated that they peck each other, and so they have the top portion of their beak seared off with a hot blade, so they can't peck each other, but they still manage to peck each other because they're so frustrated. And they have serious osteoporosis because they're pushed beyond their limits and producing so many eggs. They have calcium depletion And one of the things that really affected me was to see the escapees that get out of the cage somehow in the waste pits, and they're literally sucked down into the mire, and they suffocate, but sometimes they're still alive before their heads go in. You see their whole bodies are in the mire of waste, and their heads are sticking out. It's unconscionable.
I got to be honest with you. I don't even really know what to say about it. This is a foundational. Bobby Kennedy wants to deal with health. This is one of the issues he needs to get in hand. The factory farms, and I understand the argument that we need factory farms on some level because we need to produce for the number of people we have. But the fact that we are allowing them to behave in the way that they do without proper regulatory oversight, without proper anything. I mean, this is just an appalling thing. And again, why would we think our food supply is going to be safe when we have people that are treating the animals with this level of contempt? It's just awful.
You said without appropriate regulatory oversight, but the fact is there is no oversight in factory farms because there's no federal law in the books to protect animals in factory farms. The only laws that apply, and as an attorney, you know this, are state anti-cruelty statutes, and there's nobody in the farms that are enforcing the state anti-cruelty statutes. And most what are called standard agricultural practices, like thumping pigs and feeding chicken feathers to cows, are standard agricultural practices. So
I know a lot of local farmers, and I've met a lot of great ranchers across the country, and those are only standard practices in these horror pits that you're talking about. No normal rancher would ever treat his animals that way. No normal farmer would ever do that. These are commercial farms, and these are literally just horrific. I got to be honest, this is absolutely terrible. And producer Andrew made another good note that 100 years ago, our grandparents were raising their own food. You didn't have a grocery store. You had all the things that but look at our health. Look at the health of our country as it's declined over the last, several decades, last century. It's for everything that we've improved upon, we've lost over and over again because this is not. Our food supply is not safe. It's not healthy. It's not okay. It's a disaster, and it's horrific. It's just, I don't know. The whole thing makes me sick. It makes me absolutely sick. Gail, what do you got? What else you got real big on this? If people aren't nauseated by this, I don't know. There's something wrong with them. But what other kind of big things are you seeing that are really just awful in this universe that we need to be aware of?
Well, one thing is Andrea mentioned about 100 years ago, and we now kill more poultry in one day than we did in the entire year of 1930.
Yeah.
So, that says a lot. But another standard agricultural practice, I suppose it would be nice to try to get somebody prosecuted for this, is the shipment of pigs in sub-zero temperatures. They actually freeze, some of them on the transport vehicles actually freeze frozen solid, and it gets stuck to the side rails of the transport vehicle and have to have chains or crowbars used to pry them off. Some of them are still alive when they're frozen solid, and the workers get them off the trucks and they have to use a hot water hose to thaw them apart, to cut them into pieces, to put them down into the rendering hall where they're used for fertilizer and cosmetics and tires and things like that. But that is just unconscionable that we can ship livestock during sub-zero temperatures and know that they're going to freeze hard as rocks.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. You're right. That's unconscionable is the nicest way to say it. I think that I don't even know. Well, Gail, I think that your work is really critically important. I hope people will take a look at your book. I hope people will support you, and I hope people will share this information. If we want to be healthy, if we listen, I don't. Maybe you love animals, and maybe it hits your heartstrings that way. Maybe it hits your heartstrings because you're worried about the safety of your food. Maybe it's because you're worried about your kids and what they're eating. I don't care what it is that makes you care about this. I should be all of the above, to be real honest. I mean, this is a real thing. But check out the book, Out of Sight. See what's happening here. Understand what's going on in these factory farms. Understand what's happening and that we're allowing. And as Gail said, we've got some regulation of the slaughterhouses, but the farms are really largely unregulated, period. And when we talk about the need for regulation, please understand this is kind of like regulating big pharma. It is an industry that owns our elected officials. And when we talk about regulation, we're not talking about your local rancher. We're talking about your factory farms. They need some oversight. If we want to be healthy, if we want to be safe, we need to make sure that they've got some oversight. So, please make sure you're checking this out. Make sure you're supporting people. Gail, where else can they find you?
Well, can I just say a word about the book? Because
Please, 100%.
Okay, great. I don't want viewers to think that it's a litany of horrors. It's written as part true detective story, part memoir, and part documentary, because part of my own personal struggle is that I've had a rare visual processing disorder, and that's my efforts to expose animal cruelty take place against the backdrop of that disorder. So people on Amazon that are leaving reviews are all saying the same thing. They're saying it reads like a mystery and readers can't put it down. So I don't want people to think that it's just a litany of horrors. It's more about my struggle against big media that refused to expose my findings because they censored them. Yep. And my struggle with attorneys general who take the side of big ag, and it's got a lot of interesting antics and things like that in it. So it's not just a litany of horrors. I just wanted to make that clear because I think that people will learn a lot if they read the book. And also, we've had some pretty big successes. It's worth mentioning that too. Yeah. So it's not all tragic. People can find me at Humane Farming Association. That's who I work for. That's hfa.org. You can also find me on Instagram at Gail Eisnitz, and I have a Facebook author page, Gail A. Eisnitz. And what I always say to people is buy local or eat less meat, because we're consuming more than we need to be consuming. So eat less meat and definitely buy local.
Well, Gail, by the way, you can let your folks know at HFA if there's a spot for us to do some work together, some overlap. I'd be happy to talk to you about it and to talk to the organization about it, because I wasn't aware of them. There's a lot of good organizations out there doing great work that I don't know of. But I do believe that we need to push this to support our local farmers and to support a healthier food supply and that sort of thing. So if I can be of assistance, have them reach out. They can reach out. You've got our contact with producer Andrea and that sort of things. If we can do anything where there's overlap, I'm happy to try and support, making sure that we've got healthy, safe, humane food supply.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on, and please come back again soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Gail.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. There's Gail. She, again, how can you expect your food supply to be safe when this is the kind of nonsense we're seeing? It's horrific. It really is. But it's like everything else, right? We've got just it just truly it's truly unethical what's occurring here. And there's no question that it's they've got an industry that is uncontrolled, unmanaged, it's just random. And there we have producer Andrea making her famous appearance. Did that make you sick?
So, I mean, this is a passion of mine. I was happy to have Gail on because I'm not like your typical like PETA animal cruelty fighting person, but I'm very much the traditional prepper hippie. Like, let's get back to the way God intended us to eat. And you and I are big on fitness and nutrition. And even when you're talking to, I mean, she said eat less meat. I'm a carnivore, but when you talk about carnivore, you can never overeat meat. Like, I mean, if you go to a carnivore diet and you stop eating carbs and processed foods, you'll be shocked that like one piece of meat is almost all you need a day. But that's how God intended it. But God intended us to eat seasonally and naturally. And so even when you're talking about plants, we're not supposed to be able to go to a grocery store and have, 12 different fruits and vegetables to choose from and consume them all daily. Even plants create their own defense mechanisms. And then that's where you get your gut issues and all the lectins and all the toxins that get built up. We've gone so far. My point is we've gone so far from the natural way that God intended us to consume foods. What she just discussed was the biggest, easiest way to fight that battle. A case in point, my grandmother, who just passed away, Sweet Martha, she grew up in East Texas. And when she was a little girl, she told me, and I was close to my great-grandparents too, her parents, that there were no grocery stores. And I mean, I remember growing up going, how do you eat? There's no grocery stores. What do you mean? It hasn't been that long that we've fallen so far from eating good quality food and understanding the natural order of things. In the winter, eat things. And Kim Bright was just on with Seth Holhouse on Man America. I encourage everyone to watch that. And she talks about this. During the winter, you're supposed to, in your area, eat the things that are available. I mean, you can do some pickling and harvesting and things like that. But the way we consume food that's been mass produced, that's been poisoned and filled with toxins, and we do it just blindly. We don't even think of it. It's just so part of our culture now. And it's wild to me that it's only been like one generation that we've fallen so far. This is a Maha issue. Don't get your eyes glazed over like, ugh. No, this is a Maha issue. And like she said, if we were to go back to locally and supporting what grows locally and what we can produce locally. And again, my grandmother, it was like they would trade locally. Maybe someone was, doing more of the dairy thing. Someone was doing more of the poultry thing. And then other people were maybe doing more vegetables and things like that. But they would all trade locally. And you're not supposed to be able to eat, mangoes and pineapples and all these meats from all over the world, like packaged. And like she said, they're shipping them around frozen when they're still alive. Like beyond the cruelty, it's also just very toxic for our body, the way we're consuming and producing these things. I mean, the Skittles story, I encourage everyone to look it up. All these ranchers are saying, well, you don't understand my plight. I'm a rancher and you don't get it. I can give them Skittles. Well, I don't want to give my kids Skittles. I don't want anyone eating Skittles. We're talking about, banning these dyes and stuff. If you don't think that, your animal being fed this toxic garbage.
Your animal eats, you're eating.
Exactly. Like, it's just wild to me. It's just wild how far we've fallen.
I don't, I got to be honest with you. I've come to the point where, I didn't used to question a lot of these things. You grew up in a different spot than I do, but it's like, if you want to follow health, and part of what I want to do over my life over time is I really want to shift it, because if you want to be healthy, what you do is you just follow what's happening in the natural cycles, right? You don't eat apples in January.
And you're not supposed to. It actually is toxic for your body. And that things like Skittles, chips, and processed foods, your body literally doesn't know how to recognize it because it's not food.
Because it's not food.
It's not food. So when you eat things that are not food, your body inflames and it destroys your cells and starts causing cancers because it goes, whoa, 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 this isn't something that's supposed to be consumed.
Well, this is a universal truth. I mean, I've talked in a lot. At some point, I'm going to have a ranch, and I'm going to live in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going to have all those things.
And prepping is hip, even with people who I know that are a little bit more liberal and a little bit more central, and it doesn't matter about their politics or their faith or anything. People everywhere, especially after COVID, are into prepping and getting their family healthy because they are so sick. We are all sick, literally, because we've been poisoned. And so we're fighting against that.
100%. I want to share something that made me smile. This is wonderful news. This is a police officer's response to a leftist loon grabbing his gun. Now, I don't know what kind of a dumb something would walk up to a cop with a gun and just grab the barrel, but this is the appropriate reaction, right? I mean, I actually think this is
a special kind of stupid right there.
That to me isn't even. Some people say just shoot him. No, this is better. This is better. I mean, he just grabs. So that, I don't think we got to get to the level of shooting. This was much better because that's what that guy deserves. And now he's famous. His stupidity is now famous. He is well known as the dumbass that got punched in the face for trying to grab a cop's gun. And boy, does he deserve it. But this is the mentality of these entitled leftist little weenie rioters. They're not tough. They're not anything. They just come out there and they want to muscle themselves up and try and act like they can get away with anything. And this is the appropriate way to deal with them. Punch them in the face. There we go. Jennifer's ready. Jennifer's always ready.
We love Jennifer. Molotov cocktails are super peaceful. I love what she's talking about. I love, was it the mayor of LA was standing there going, this is really peaceful, nothing to see here. And while the video's playing, because I don't think she was live, of course, because she's not going to put herself live. She wasn't on the ground where this was happening, but she was on CNN or some major news source. And she was trying to implore the people to understand that there's nothing to see here. Everything's fine. These are peaceful, protests, nothing violent. While the live footage is playing behind her, something just explodes.
Yeah. This is idiocy on a massive scale. And, one of the things I want to, before we get into anything else, I want to go to the core of this issue because we only have a few days.
Yeah.
I mean, between now and Saturday, if there aren't some big arrests of some people who are behind these behind these groups that are organizing this, I don't want to know what this weekend's going to look like. It ain't going to be good. So right now, we've got a situation where the DOJ is doing absolutely nothing. Nothing. I mean, they're arresting, low-level thugs that the police are arresting, but the FBI doesn't see. Apparently, there's now talk of investigations. We've been screaming about this all week, and it looks like Trump's got them investigating, but still no arrests of anybody that's actually up the food chain.
Who's paying? Okay, we know they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Who's paying them? Fire the bosses, not just the retards on the ground. I want to fire the bosses.
Here's what I want to know, right? So I am an attorney from Ohio with no counter-terror experience whatsoever. I have never tried to track or trace a terror financing network. I've never done any of this, right? Producer Andrea is a producer, from Nevada, and she is also not an expert in terror financing.
No.
Data Republican is a data analyst who is not an expert in terror financing. Yet the three of us have for a week been tracking and tracing money that would certainly provide enough evidence, enough data to have cause to investigate.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we may not yet have cause for charges, but to investigate. So now explain to me why the DOJ, decades of experience, I mean, they track Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they've got FinCEN, suspicious activity reports, global banking data. They've got the Treasury. They've got everything. They've got everything every tool you could possibly need to trace a financial terror network, right? And we have a group of people that are funding and supporting what can only be termed as terror in the United States. I mean, you're funding riots, looting, chaos, burning. I mean, look at LA. Look at it's now expanded. It's all over the place, and it's going to get much worse this weekend. This is terror. Why is it that producer Andrea, Data Republican, and myself, not that we are not working with Data Republican, I'm just following her work, but why is it that we're able to accomplish these things and to track this stuff out with no tools, but our federal government can't seem to do anything? They're impotent. At best, they're impotent. It seems to me that it's a little bit odd. Now, I'll give you that it could be, that there's still some holdovers from Biden that are trying to slow walk it. We certainly got issues. California is not going to help you with that investigation. But at the end of the day, this isn't a complicated thing. The country's on fire, and it shouldn't take. I mean, listen, Bongino, Cash, those guys know how to do their job, I would assume. Get it done. I mean, it doesn't take that much. And if you disrupt the financial network, you disrupt the riots because they have to pay these rioters. A lot of these guys, the core agitators, the key people, we posted, an advertisement for a air quote badass in LA, that they're recruiting. They're trying to get this. We see you disrupt the payment, you disrupt the protests. And you can do that.
But we've also found in our research how much USAID and our own federal government has also funded these activities. So just like COVID, when everyone is going China, China, China. Oh, yep. Wait a second. Our government funded
us,
the
with
Wuhan
our tax
lab.
Money funding this.
So wait a minute. Our government also, USAID, has funded other similar like protests globally.
Yep.
So if you sit back and you think that we're the good guys and we're super innocent and we're only being infiltrated by Soros, then you're mistaken. The only reason I can think of from the money I've traced that they aren't moving, they're not making arrests, they're not doing anything is probably because it's going to reveal how much we've been funding this and how much our federal government has been behind this.
Well, I think that they're also not doing it because they want to use it to promote more Patriot Act type legislation. Exactly. I mean, we've got Palantir in the federal government right now, and in the big, beautiful bill, and this is really important here, right? So the big, beautiful bill, the 10-year moratorium on state level AI regulations has apparently been removed. That's great news. But, or at least, that's what Grok is telling me. But they're funding this to a massive scale. Now, I want to show you this, by the way, because this is really bizarre. So I asked Grok, I'll show you. Let me just show you the screen. So I asked Grok, is AI provision still in the big, beautiful bill? Because I wasn't sure whether they removed it. And it says AI provision has been removed. And it was, initially in there, and they took that out, right? And then it says the final version of the bill signed into law July of 2025. Is this scripted, folks? Because I didn't think that last I checked, we're not to July of 2025. How is it that they know it's going to be done? How does Grok know that it's going to be signed in July unless there's a plan? But it instead has AI budgetary thing, $500 million for federal IT, $1 billion for AI border security, $2 billion for AI Pentagon audits. This is a huge deal. First of all, how does Grok know what's going to be in the final bill in July if it hasn't been agreed upon? Are we being played, folks? Are you kidding me? Are we being played? This is monumental. I'm going to be posting this a little bit here on Twitter, but Grok is telling me what's going to happen in July of 2025. Was this an error? What's going on here? How does Grok know when this is going to happen and how it's going to happen? I think this stuff is being allowed to promote this. I think this stuff is being allowed to justify this. I think this stuff is a distraction. I think the deep state is well in hand. They're managing things on a profound level. And, this is absolutely, it just smells like corruption to me. I don't know what else it would be. So, folks, this is a truly shocking scenario to me. But to see Grok telling me what's going to happen in July is really interesting. Meanwhile, we don't have to look to the future, Grok's predictions. But we can look to see that, Churla, some of these groups, they've been funded, right? These are the groups that are actively involved or in these protests. Now, there's a question: are they funding the protests or not? Well, interestingly, when you look at this, we see major grants from different places going to some of these for things like education. Well, a protest could arguably be called an educational event, couldn't it? I mean, listen, we're going to go protest to open the public's eyes to what's going on. We can't say for sure what's going on internally with the funding, but boy, it looks suspicious, doesn't it? It certainly does. And then when we see guys from the SEIU bringing masks, and like body armor in, folks, this isn't something that couldn't be stopped. If I can pull this data, anyone can pull this data. And certainly the FBI, DOJ shouldn't not only be pulling it, they should be ahead of it. They should be breaking this. Why is it that internet researchers are breaking this information instead of our federal government and our federal law enforcement agencies that are supposed to be stopping this? I think they're undermining Donald Trump. Donald Trump is out there doing the best he can. But we've seen that the deep state, they lied to Trump. They didn't tell him about the assassination on Putin. They didn't tell him about this or the assassination attempt on Putin from Ukraine. They didn't tell him about the Ukraine war strikes on Russia's nuclear armaments, which is amazing. That could have resulted in World War III, and our intel guys didn't even bother to tell the president. So do you think they're telling the president about this stuff? I think that there's people undermining Trump in his circle. I think that there are people at the DOJ and in the White House undermining Trump, preventing access, preventing him from seeing what's happening. The only way we fix this is if we, the people, are loud enough that Donald Trump hears it. This has got to be done. It's got to happen. We've got to get rid of the traitors. We've got to start fighting the snakes in the woodshed. Get them out of there. We've got to stand on this. We have so much more, and I want to talk about some international aspects of some of these other things, but we're just out of time today. Folks, so much more. Maybe we'll do a special show, or maybe we'll come in.
We need to tell everyone right now that you have a Substack. I know not everyone uses Substack, but most of what we publish there is free. So if you just look up Tom Renz on Substack, everything we talk about on the show, we go deeper in on our Substack. Yes. And we'll share more links and things like that. So please check out Tom's Substack.
Yeah, tomrenz.substack.com. We put a fair bit of time and effort into that. Please, we got the shows there, but the shows also come with a tremendous description and a lot of language and discussion of it. Take some time and effort to do that. So please support us there. tomrenz.substack.com, tomrenz.substack.com. All right, everybody, we got a lot more on this. We'll be back as soon as I can. But stay tuned and please get loud, speak out, share this stuff, help us get it out there. Thanks for listening.